Let's talk about the levels of consciousness now. They're the 3 blue cards that you used to place on the pairs, the yellow and the pink cards. The 3 levels of consciousness are represented by the words tribal, individuation, and symbolic. In the tribal column, it means you're still living out any lesson that's currently being played out in your life. It means you're physically based. It means you give your power away to external authority figures. It means also that you're unconscious. You're not necessarily aware of what's going on in your life. It also means that there is a level of fear, an undercurrent of fear that runs in your life. The majority of the planet lives at the tribal level because this is where you believe everything external to you, that it validates you. So that means you believe you are the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the house you live in, how many degrees you've got on the wall, and how much money you've got in the bank. You believe, if you like, the Disneyland map of the world that says if you have all that in place, you're going to be happy ever after. Life will be just wonderful. Unfortunately, it's not the truth, because somewhere along the line you discover that even if you have a lot of money in the bank, it doesn't stop you becoming ill, getting cancer. So to move from the tribal level to the individuation level, unfortunately what it takes is a crisis. A crisis can look many different ways. It's literally an earthquake, a tsunami of some sort, a fire. It could be the death of a parent. It could be a car smash. It could be being wiped out financially. It could be any sort of major loss or grief situation that happens. So you're living, as you believe, happily in the tribal level. A crisis happens in your life, and then it forces you into the individuation level. This column should be epitomised by 2 words, chaos and madness. Because what happens is that the rug gets pulled out from under your feet in a big way in the middle column, and we don't like it. That's because, in my eyes, having done many, many chart readings and other sorts of readings as well, we all share the number one fear. That fear to me is your fear of being out of control. That's because in the womb, you remembered who you were in a bigger picture sort of way. You had all your needs met. You never had to ask for anything. It was just automatically supplied. But the moment you're born, or a very short space of time after you're born, it hits you that you're this helpless, hopeless little individual that is utterly reliant on everyone else for your well-being. That's when the fear of control kicks in. So it's everyone's experience, and then it plays out on the planet to different degrees. So in this column of individuation, you experience this primal sense of fear, which is actually that you're out of control. So it can feel like the dark night of the soul, and you can stay there for years and years and years, depending on the extent of the trauma that's happened to you. However, there's some good news here, and the good news is there is a higher purpose to this middle column. It is designed to send you inwards, to perhaps go inside and ask yourself, okay, what's happening that I've attracted this sort of trauma into my life? What's happening that it feels like I've just been hit by a Mack truck? It takes courage to ask that question, and even more courage to hear the answer. What generally happens is that when you're pushed into the individuation column, 9 out of 10 people go, this is too scary for me, I'm out of here. And they go back to the tribal level. The tribal level is the outer level of consciousness, if you like. In the tribal level, you have to then turn to something to make you feel good. This is where our addictions sit in the tribal level. We all share at least 10 main addictions. The first 3 addictions that every single one of us shares: money, sex, food. Money is God on this planet, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, and it's a major addiction for a lot of people. Sex is used to sell everything from caravans and cars to boats to houses, and is misused. And the third one is food. Women traditionally have used food more as a love substitute, but men are totally catching up, especially in Australia. And so those 3 addictions we all have to move through at some point, but there's many, many other addictions. Obviously, internet, Facebook, Twitter, major addictions now on the planet that weren't there 20 years ago. Exercise can be a major addiction. One of my biggest addictions was being the workaholic, because that's all I was validated for, as long as you're working hard. Education can be an addiction, believe it or not. So can television. We have so many. The need to be right can even be an addiction for some people. So we all share many, many addictions. So when you hit your crisis and you feel out of control, 8 out of 10 people go back to the tribal level and turn to an addiction to make them feel better. 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 people have the courage to hang out in the middle column of individuation and say, so what's going on that my life is that messed up? What's happening to me that I need this sort of wake-up call to get my attention? As I said earlier, it takes courage to ask those questions, and if you've got the courage to hear the answer, then you have the opportunity to go across to the symbolic level. The symbolic level is wonderful. It's where your archetype now becomes your friend and your ally. It means that you're about to finish this particular lesson. You can finish it whenever you choose to. That's because you're conscious in the symbolic level. With consciousness comes awareness. With awareness, you get choice. You can still hit your crisis in the symbolic levels, but this time the archetype's your friend and your ally, and it taps you on the shoulder and says, excuse me, we've been there, done that. Do you really want to do this again? And you go, oh, now that you mention it, I don't think I do. Whereas if you're in the tribal level, you're so unconscious, it never occurs to you you've got a choice. It's just knee-jerk reaction to the fear. So back to the symbolic level, this is where the archetype really, really serves you. And it's wonderful to have any archetype sitting out here. However, I have done over 17,000 plus readings, and I've never, ever, ever met anyone yet that has all 12 of their archetypes sitting at the symbolic level. That's because that's the energy of a realized being, a master soul on the planet, like Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu or some highly, highly evolved being on the planet. What happens to us mere mortals is that we catch glimpses of the symbolic level, but we can't sustain living there full time yet. I have no doubt we're heading there as a planet, and that's why one of the reasons the world is in such chaos and madness at the moment. It is the chaos theory where everything has to go haywire before it can find a new level and settle in at a new energy rate, if you like. So even if you did have all 12 at the symbolic level, to a certain extent it would say, brilliant, congratulations, you've done really well. It does not say, however, how evolved you are. You could have graduated from what the chart reading is telling you, but for all you know, you might have just graduated from kindergarten. Somebody could have just one archetype at the symbolic level, yet they're doing their PhD at university. So it does not tell you how evolved you are. As an analogy, it's a bit like being in grade 6 in primary school. You're a big fish in a little pond. Yet when you move to year 7 in secondary school, you go right back to the tribal level because you're now a small fish in a big pond. So we cycle between all levels, between tribal, individuation, symbolic. And that's the game at the moment. Sometimes you can have an enormous amount of archetypes sitting at the tribal level, and that's because you're at brand new beginnings in your life and you're starting off afresh, maybe because of the crisis, maybe not, but it means that there's a whole new opportunity unfolding to you. Conversely, if you have a lot at the symbolic level, it can also mean you're about to finish a chapter in your life and start brand new again in some way. So these are the levels of consciousness that tell me absolutely where you're at, and they add an incredible depth to this chart reading, and I'm very blessed to be able to use them.